Now I'm pretty sure that this is the right spot to dig in. And so in today's video, I'm gonna be digging a hole so deep that I hopefully strike water. I'm gonna hopefully dig a hole that's gonna help me build a spring for the future of my farm and supplying my farm with thousands and thousands of gallons of water so I can water my animals and grow my farm. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is the right spot to dig. Ooh, would you look at that muck? Yeah, I think this is definitely the right spot. But before I start digging any further, I should probably back up a little bit. Now you might be wondering, how do you even find a spot where if you dug for it, you might actually find some water? Well, one traditional method is actually using some willow sticks. And you basically hold one in each hand and you keep walking around, essentially looking for a spot where the two sticks start to come together like this.
Don't cross the streams. Why? It would be bad.
Of course, are the sticks doing it or am I moving it with my hands? It's kind of like a Ouija board.
For your information, dude, the Ouija board has been around since recorded history.
This activity is known as dowsing, and the people who do it are known as dowsers. You know, they use lots of different types of metal rods or wooden rods. Like, there's a lot of debate around it. I personally have no such skills and don't even know what I'm doing, and that's not even a willow tree. But someday in the future, I do hope to actually have a dowser out to the farm and maybe have them help me spot some good spots for future ponds and springs and the like. But for me, the way I actually found this spot was just by looking around and being really observant with my land. So, you know, the couple of things that are really distinct about the area we're in right now, the plants and grasses that grow around here are very different than in the prime side of my fields. Like, just to give you a sense of where we're at, right? So my main big pasture is right here. You can see my partially completed fence posts. Down that hill is where all the ducks and geese and Toby dog and Abby dog all live. And over here is a rougher pasture that is kind of going to scrub, kind of going to forest, but I hope to reclaim one day. You can even see the dividing line that they made in the olden times, right? Where there's this like ancient rock wall that was probably built, I don't know, 150 years ago, 200 years ago. Because this area right here is a bit distinct. You know, for example, while over in the main pasture, we have this beautiful sandy loam soil. Over here, I'll actually grab a little piece of it and I can get some of it. You can actually see it's very mucky and very clay-like, the type of soil that we have. And so for me, as I'm looking at my land and observing things, that's where this is one of those different spots. The other thing though that drove me to this spot specifically is I've been watching it and I noticed a pattern begin last winter where when I would come out here in the winter time, I would see that there would often be snow melted right around the spot that's right behind me there. I'd noticed that there would be a lot of animals that would move and congregate around it. It seemed to always melt faster than everything else. And so that pattern of activity had me seriously thinking that there must be a spring under there, that there's like active water coming up from the ground, and that's what's causing all the wetness in this area. Because if you look at this soil, right, it is really wet. And that for me could be an opportunity. Because as I start to scale my farm up, one of the bigger challenges I'm gonna have is not so much having grass or grazing space for more animals. It's gonna be getting water to different parts of the farm.
Remember, water is life.
And what's beautiful about the spot that we're standing in right now is, while we're not at the highest point of the farm, which is actually, I don't know, probably about 100 yards that way, we're pretty high up relative to a lot of other places on our farm. You know, a lot of the good pastures that way, the barns are all that way. I could even use a spring like this to feed my pond and keep it from getting disgusting. And so having a spring in this spot that's developed would be huge. And so while my goal today is not to develop the spring, my goal is to determine, do I have an active spring here? And if I do, is it something I could develop in the future? And then I could possibly put it on my project slate for next year. Coming out here and doing this digging today has been on my to-do list since last January, I think. And so to be able to come out and do this dig and see if I have the spring, I wanted to get it going before the weather turned too cold and I couldn't even get out here. So enough yakking and let's start digging. Oof. Oh, would you look how mucky and muddy this is? I feel like it's definitely got something going on. Maybe it's just a low water table, but it looks like as I've been digging and digging out all that muck, seems to be filling up with more water. That right there, my friends, is a really promising sign. So let's start digging more. Yeah, I brought my tractor to make this job a whole heck of a lot easier. Now, if I look at what I've dug here, what I can see is down over here, it's muddy and soggy. I almost got my tractor stuck at one point. But what I can see here is this spot over here keeps filling up with water. No matter what I do, it keeps having more water come in. So that would tell me that we do have what we need for a spring. And that to me is super exciting news.
I drink your milkshake.
Well, would you guys look at that? It looks like somebody bombed a pillow factory. There's a whole bunch of feathers over here. Would you look at that? Look how many feathers there are. So many feathers. More feathers over here. So just so you guys aren't confused, I am not surprised that this is all out here right now, because I was in fact the person who dumped it all out here. You see, every fall after I do my big bird harvest, I usually have to scatter my waste product somewhere, and I chose this spot this year. You know, we did a lot of birds. I think it was a total of 41 geese, 28 ducks, and 5 roosters. Yeah, it makes a lot of mess. Now, some of you might be wondering, well, why didn't I try to use the feathers? Like, isn't there a market for goose or duck down? You see, once the birds are killed, we dunk them in scalding hot water in order to loosen up the feathers so that they can be easier to pull off. Now, if I had like a dry plucking tool, I could maybe try to get some of the down off and then try to use that and sell it. I usually will pull off the best flight feathers. And so you see some flight feathers still out here, but I actually sold, gosh, I want to say about 18 packs of flight feathers. I think it was about 18. I only keep the really, really good ones, but then people who like calligraphy and that sort of thing will often buy them on our website. And so it's a good little side business for us. And so I took those, but all the garbage flight feathers, as well as all the down, you really have no good way of drying it. And believe me, I've tried to dry it before, but it just turns moldy and gross. And so unfortunately, I find the best thing to do is just sort of return it to nature. And by next fall at this time, they're entirely gone. It's just kind of a way to give back to nature, I suppose. I also took like some of the things that I didn't feed the dogs, like the intestines and the heads, and I ended up actually dumping those out here as well, right amongst the feathers. And because I know that that sort of thing can attract all sorts of interesting creatures, I ended up setting up some trail cameras because I wanted to see who came by. Now, I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I love opening trail cameras and seeing what the footage is. Every time I pull the memory card out and stick it into my computer, I feel like a kid on Christmas morning, just like savagely unwrapping his presents to see what he got. And yeah, I'm very curious to see. But I'm not gonna make you guys wait to see what happens, so check it out. So in the 10 minutes that it took me to walk over there to get the trail cameras, just came back over here to check on our dig site. I don't know if you guys can see it. We already got water starting to pool up down here. Like that was bone dry about 10 minutes ago. And look, even more water's pooling up over here. You listen to that? All right, let's head back to the farm. I actually have one more thing I want to show you guys. So ever since our steer, Kurt Cobain, went off to the abattoir, folks have asked me, what did I end up doing with his pelt and his skull, and if I had any intentions of ever preserving it? Well, here's your answer. Basically, the same day I took Kurt to the slaughterhouse, I actually went back there and picked up both his pelt and his skull, and I have every intention of doing the best possible preservation job I can. So to preserve his skull, I actually set him out here, set up a T-post that I just pounded in here, chained him to the post. You know, I felt like it was right to give him some sort of a sky burial, and so I had a little ceremony and set him out here. And the various wild creatures around the farm have had their chance at him. That was a feast for the crows and feast for the turkey vultures. And then in the last couple of weeks, what I've noticed is the beetles have come out and they actually went in and took out a lot of the flesh. You can still see there's a little bit of remnants and it still needs to be cleaned off. You can actually even still see fur up here. I'm not sure if I'm gonna leave them up here all winter or if I'll pull them down in another couple of weeks. But I'm gonna have to at some point go through and bleach the rest of the skull and probably boil it a couple of times to get it clean. But yes, I have every intention of making good use of that skull. As I've said in many other videos, I feel like it honors the animal to make the full use of the animal, and so that's my intention. As far as the pelt goes, I actually put it in the freezer and I have it stored, but I need to find a way to tan it and preserve it. I really would love to make like a rug out of his pelt. It's gigantic. It's furry with all that Scottish Highland fur. And again, in the name of honoring him and cherishing him, I really would like to make best use of it. I might try to take the job of tanning it myself, where I scrape off all the fat, salt it, treat it, do the whole 9 yards, but I don't know how to do that. It's not something I'm really all that interested in doing. Actually would love to put a call out to anybody out there. If anybody out there does tanning of cattle hides, I have a hide I would love to send you, and I would really like to hire you to preserve it and tan it. Also, if you know of any tanners who do it, I've looked all over and I have not had much luck in finding someone who does cattle. I've found people who do deer, goats, sheep, that sort of thing, but nobody really wants to do cattle because the pelt is so big. Now, I hope you guys have really enjoyed this adventure today out here in the further reaches of our farm. I gotta head back down and probably have some lunch and hang out with the dogs, and I will see you guys in that next video. Thanks for watching.